Today was a reminder of how much what I do is a validation of a lot of the theories and ideas that are in focus here. So what I want you to do is to think of me as a practitioner of the theories and the ideas of this conference. This is my autobiography also, because I've only had 2 jobs, and sometimes it's not on my resume. I used to fly jets for a living. Did any of you know that? I flew 727s, and I have a captain's rating. And I flew for Braniff Airlines. Great idea, wrong airline. But it was cool, you know. So I owe my life to a public school teacher who happened to be a cool guy, who happened to be a potter. And I was walking down the corridor of our high school, kind of minding my own business, and the art room door was open, and we had a potter's wheel at our school, and it was one of those providential experiences where Mr. Ross happened to be making a pot the minute I walked by his door, and I stood there at the door kind of transfixed because ceramics is magic. You know, you take a piece of clay and you make it into something. It's pretty dramatic. I'm from the inner city. I never saw a potter, much less a pot being made, and it was like magic. And I said, he turned around, he says, "Can I help you?" I says, "What is that, man?" He said, "Oh, that's ceramics." I says, "Well, I want you to teach me how to do that." He says, "Well, get your homeroom teacher to sign a piece of paper that says you can come in, you're good to go." So for the remaining 2 years of high school, I cut all my classes, and I went to the art room. But I was smart enough to give the teachers whose classes I was cutting the pottery I made, and they gave me passing grades. And that's how I got out of the place. I believe that people are born into the world as assets, not liabilities. It is all in the way that you treat people that drives behavior. And that's the thing that underlies this little center I'm going to show you. So I took over Bidwell in 1972 in a warehouse with holes in the floor and holes in the roof. When I showed up, the door was hanging on one hinge and the kids were gambling at the front door. That's what we built. I hired a student of a fellow named Frank Lloyd Wright. You heard of him? He did okay in the architecture business. Well, I hired one of his students to build that center in the worst neighborhood in Pittsburgh with the highest crime rate, which is exactly where it needed to be built. It's my neighborhood. My whole life story is 61 years of 6 city blocks. I will die in the neighborhood where I was born. I got put on the board of the Carnegie Museum, and I was at a big reception. They got millions of dollars in the fountain in their courtyard because they think that the people that go to the museum deserve a fountain. Well, I think the welfare mothers and these at-risk kids deserve a fountain. That's why I put it in my school, because I'm in the attitude business, not just the training business. And people are a function of environment. You build world-class environments, you get world-class kids. You build prisons, you get prisoners. And if you don't remember anything else I said here today, except that environment drives behavior, then I've done my job. That's the entrance to the building. Pittsburgh is gray, just like Detroit, from basically November to May. But even on a gray day, this building is all glass, so it's flooded with sunlight. The worst part about being poor is what it does to your spirit. Poor people never notice that the sun comes up in the morning because they don't have any reason to look at it anymore. So in my building, we've made the thing all glass, and even on a gray day, the building is hopeful. And the whole idea was to let people know that you don't have to be rich to look at the sun. It's for everybody on the planet, not just for rich people. We even have fresh flowers in the building every day. I don't want to offend anybody, but I am not a proponent of plastic flowers. I've never figured out what the aesthetic contribution of plastic flowers was supposed to be to the world, but I don't have them in my school. And now that I'm getting to be a big shot, see, giving speeches all over the place, we had a bunch of high school principals come visit my school, and they said, "Man, Mr. Strickland, this place is fabulous." And we were really blown away by them flyers. We were curious how them flyers got there. I said, "Well, I got in my car and I went out to the greenhouse, and I bought them, and I brought them back, and I put them there. You don't need a task force or a study group to buy flyers for your kids." You know, the children deserve fresh flowers in their life. The cost is incidental, but the gesture is very significant. People are a function of little things, not just big things. And all these things that you don't think matter, particularly the poor people, they matter big time. And environment drives behavior. And I got called into the office of United States Senator John Hines, who was the heir to the Heinz ketchup fortune, which is like going to see the Wizard of Oz because he had about $600 million at the time, and I had about 60 cents. And he said, man, you've really done a great job with the black folks and the ex-steel workers and this and that and the at-risk kids. And we understand you want to build a new school. I said, yes, sir, I do. He said, well, you could really help the Heinz Company's affirmative action goals out if you'd add a culinary program to your new school when you get it built. And that way we could hire some black people. I said, well, I'm reluctant to go into a field I don't know anything about, Senator. We were a building trades program back then. But I promise you, if you'll help me get this school built, I'll come back in a couple of years and we'll get that food program going just like you asked. And he sat real quietly and he said, well, what would your answer be if I said I'd give you $1 million? I said, Senator, it appears that we're going into the food training business. And we borrowed the curriculum from the Culinary Institute of America that kind of fancies itself to Harvard of cooking schools. And I created a gourmet cooks program for welfare mothers in this $1 million kitchen. And we've never looked back. We even got the black people and the white people eating together voluntarily in the lunchroom without me giving a civil rights speech. What we discovered is that if you build world-class facilities, people have a tendency to see themselves as the same. You build prisons, they act like prisoners. So we got the cultural diversity problem figured out by not talking about cultural diversity, by talking about human beings and celebrating everybody as somebody who can contribute something to the planet. This is the work the students are doing after 6 months. These are all the poor people who supposedly don't have any talent. Well, what we discovered is the only thing wrong with poor people is they don't have any money, which is a curable condition. It is all in the way that you think about people that drives behavior. You treat people like poor people, that's the way they'll behave. If you treat them like world-class citizens, that's what they produce in 6 months. Now, by the way, this isn't just for the slideshow. This is what we eat for lunch at the school every day. Why? Gourmet food for everybody on the planet, not just for rich people. And you can't teach kids algebra if they're hungry. So we subsidize a gourmet lunch for the welfare mothers. Why? Good for their stomachs, better for their heads. I wanted to take the stigma out of food. Good food for everybody on the planet, not just for rich people. We train pharmaceutical technicians for the pharmacy industry. And when you guys come to Pittsburgh, I'll show you guys doing pharmaceutical applications with no background in science in about 8 months. Going to work for the hospitals, et cetera, all the retail pharmacy people, no big deal. We also train chemical technicians for outfit called Bayer, Calgon Carbon, Nova Chemical, Alcoa, PPG. I'll show you welfare moms doing analytical chemical applications in 10 months using logarithmic calculators. I have 40 research technicians working for Bayer right now who are poor folks. So nobody on this planet can tell me that you can't train poor people to do world-class technology. I've been doing it in Pittsburgh big time. You just have to want to do it bad enough. The dropout rate for black and Hispanic kids in America is 50%. That's 1 out of 2 kids. You know what that's called? A tsunami. And it's going to bury this country. And I am not an alarmist. I'm a very conservative guy. But I'm telling you what I see, and we ain't going to make it, guys. And see, part of the importance of what you guys are doing, these 2 people right there, my friends, you are giving this country, through example, a chance to save itself. The importance of the work that you guys are doing is much bigger than the 2 of you. You've unleashed something that is profoundly important and may be one of the antidotes to cure this cancer.